Hello everyone, and for today's Europa Barbarorum 2 faction guide, we're going to be talking about Pontus. Definitely one of the most interesting factions in EB2, and probably one of my favorite factions as well. So I really like Koinon Hellenon, Hayastan. I've already talked about those two factions. I really like Epirus, but because it's going to be heavily changed in the next EB2 update, I won't talk about it just yet. But I really like Pontus as well. So Pontus is a small kingdom located in northern Asia Minor. Its ruling dynasty was probably related to the Achaemenids. It has an Iranian ruling dynasty, and it was a very much a Hellenistic type of Achaemenid successor state. It was heavily influenced by the Hellenistic world. And yeah, it's basically an Achaemenid successor state in northern Asia Minor. And today I will give you some faction background, some tips, the lay of the land for Pontus. And hopefully this video will help you if you've been having trouble as Pontus in EB2. I know I've been getting a lot of requests from people to talk about Pontus in EB2 because it definitely is one of the more difficult factions to play as in Europa Barbarorum. That goes for 1 and 2. So, at the start, basically one of the reasons it's hard to play as Pontus is because at the beginning your economy is not good. You only start out with one city, Amasya, and you are bordered by, well, you have very interesting provinces that you're bordered by. So you basically have minor factions all around you. You have Paphlagonia to the north, Sinope. You have Galatia, Cappadocia to the south, Galatia to the southwest, and Cappadocia to the south. You have Bithynia to the west. You have Lesser Armenia to the east, and you have Trobizand to the northeast. So basically you start off with a couple of armies here. So you have this one army under your general Ariarathes, and he has an interesting general's bodyguard. He's the only one with an infantry general's bodyguard. So I would bring him back into the fold because he has enemy troops right next to him at the start. But you also have this pretty good army in northern Pontus. And the other thing is your king is Mithridates Katistes. And he's very old at the start. So you want to get started very quickly in terms of conquering. So what I would do is I would combine these troops and then go against Sinope. So even though Sinope has a half stack, and there's also a half stack outside the city, they're not that strong in terms of the units they have. So you can definitely handle both of them. Your army is a full stack. It's bigger than both of them. And once this stack under Iatrocles attacks you, you can definitely overwhelm it and then set up to fight the other reinforcing stack from Sinope and crush them as well. And that's definitely the first step I would take. So in EB1, when you take Sinope, the Koinon Hellenon declare war on you, but not in EB2. At least that hasn't happened for me. So yeah, that's good. And the next province I would go after is definitely Trobizand, because Sinope is a rich province, so that will help you break even in terms of your economy. But Trobizand will help you become rich, because once you take Trobizand, you'll have a third rich province, because Amasya is not a bad province in terms of its richness. And once you take Trobizand, your economy is going to be doing really well. You'll be able to reinforce your troops, and then that's when I would take Lesser Armenia here. So the Pokerhaik, the capital at Anikamach here, is a small province. It was historically taken by Pontus eventually. And the reason I don't suggest going after it first, considering the settlement doesn't even have walls or anything, is because it has a pretty nice army, a rebel army here. And I think it's a better idea to go after Sinop, which has 2 half-stacks, and then Trobizand, which only has the city garrison, which is not that intimidating, and then going after Lesser Armenia once you reinforce your battered army. And these are going to be your core provinces. So Pontus has access to a bunch of different types of governments, a few more than, for example, Hayastan has access to at the beginning, in any case. But these are going to be your core provinces. I highly suggest constructing Pontic administrations in these core provinces. And let's talk a little, and then after that, that's when I suggest going after, well, I always suggest going for a type of historical expansion in Europa Barbarorum 2, and the developers have definitely made it so that expanding historically is conducive to your faction, and that includes Pontus. So I suggest going after Kutaisi, Kolkis, and then expanding north, snaking around the Black Sea, and taking the Cimmerian Bosporus, conquering that kingdom, which is of course, a major faction in EB2, not in EB1 due to the faction limit, the increased faction limit in Medieval 2. And then taking Chersonesos, and I suggest taking Chersonesos because it's part of the Reforms, this city over here, even though it's not a part of the Cimmerian Bosporus at the beginning, I believe. Actually, we can just check that right now. Yeah, it's not. So, definitely, I suggest doing that. So the reason I didn't suggest going south after these nice, big, and rich provinces, Galatia and Cappadocia, at the beginning, is because you don't really start off with the economy and the military might to actually take on. There are a bunch of stacks in Galatia and Cappadocia, and they are very difficult provinces to tame in terms of handling the public order issues. So I definitely recommend expanding more historically at the start, or going around the Black Sea, taking these rich provinces, building up your economy, and then going after Cappadocia, and then going after Galatia and Bithynia. So Cappadocia is actually involved in the Pontic Reforms, which I'm going to talk about in a moment. So Pontus has a more simpler sort of reform system. It's more simple than the Koinon Hellenon reforms, and it's simpler than the Hayastan reforms as well. It's far less elaborate. But, it's medium in terms of how the reforms work in EB2. So to become an empire, you have to do 2 things. First thing is you have to own at least 10 provinces. So you have to take, and amongst those 10 provinces, you have to have Sinop, Trobizand, Kutaisi, Mazaka, Cappadocia, Pontic, the capital of the Cimmerian Bosporus, and the Chersonesos, the city right here. And so you have to own at least 10 provinces, and you have to own those provinces in particular as well. So that's not so bad. The other thing is you have to win more than 10 battles, so basically 11 battles, against these factions, against the Seleucids, the Ptolemies, Pergamum, and the Bosporan kingdom. So, of course, against all these factions, not more than 10 battles against each and every faction. That would be 40 plus battles. It has to be 11 battles against all of those factions, which is definitely doable. And once you do both of those requirements, then Pontus becomes Eastern Imperial. And once you become Eastern Imperial, that's when you'll be able to upgrade your Pontic administration buildings all across your kingdom. And you turn into the Pontic Empire, essentially. And once you do that, that's when I would challenge the big empires here, the Seleucids in Southern Asia Minor, the Ptolemies in Southern Asia Minor as well, the Kingdom of Pergamum to the west, which is small but rich and fairly powerful. And then, of course, if you go the historical route, you want to take Asia Minor and then go and then invade mainland Greece, like Mithridates VI did. But of course, you could resolve to recreate the Achaemenid Empire and expand east, if you'd like. And both options are good for Pontus, because Pontus is a Hellenistic kingdom, but it's also an Achaemenid successor state. So expanding in both directions is actually very good for Pontus. And yeah, essentially, that is it for the Pontic Reforms. In terms of the Pontic Army, I do want to talk about the Pontic Army a little bit. So the Pontic Army, let's take a look at this army. So this is essentially the kind of army you'll have for the beginning part of your campaign. So your general's bodyguards are half cataphracts. These are the heaviest sort of cavalry you'll be able to recruit. You'll be able to have as Pontus. So of course in the capital, you have access to Iranian medium cavalry as well as Cappadocian medium cavalry, basic archers, basic javelinmen, basic spearmen. You do have access to very, very basic phalanx troops, the native phalanx. You have Galatian infantry, very good offensive infantry. These guys not very good on the defense due to their lack of armor. And you have these peltasts, which are very good medium infantry. And essentially, Pontus has a very balanced army. As you can see from this recruitment pool here, this army is very balanced. You don't have access to the best heavy cavalry. You don't have access to the best skirmisher cavalry. You don't have access to the best, most elite infantry, but you have access to good infantry, flexible infantry, and good flexible medium cavalry. So that's where the strength of Pontus lies. You have a very balanced army. And then as you conquer more of these provinces, you'll get access to more Galatian units. If you make some allied governments, you get access to other kinds of special AOR units like Carian mercenaries and other types of units as well. And if you expand up to Colchis, you get the Colchian, the special Colchian infantry, the Colchian spearmen, and the Colchian heavy sword axe infantry. And those are very good troops. And then as you expand north to the provinces of the Cimmerian Bosporus, you get access to a bunch of Sarmatian, Scythian Sarmatian and Scythian units, so skirmisher cavalry, horse archers. And yeah, that's the strength of Pontus. You have a very interesting starting position. You have interesting neighbors. You can definitely build up your economy starts off weak, but once you take these provinces to the north, Sinope and Trobizand, you can really strengthen your economic position and your military position. And then the sky's the limit. Pontus can be a very strong faction if played correctly. So that's pretty much all I have to say about Pontus. Pontus, it's definitely one of my favorite factions in EB1 and 2. So the next guide video, I've been going back and forth on this. So I've done guide videos on Hayastan, on Koinon Hellenon, and now on Pontus. So I'm thinking I might do either Macedon, the Cimmerian Bosporus, or perhaps Parthia, because Parthia has very interesting reforms, and I also want to talk a bit about that because it's very different from the way Parthia works in EB1. Parthia has a more involved reforms process in EB2 than EB1, and that's pretty much true of most of the factions that have elaborate reforms. But in any case, I hope this video helps beginner players or advanced players who have not played as Pontus yet. So again, to recap, I would take Sinop, Trobizand, and then Lesser Armenia, and these are going to be your core provinces, and then go up, expand across the Black Sea provinces, Colchis, and the Cimmerian Bosporus provinces, and then once you do that, that's when I would expand south to Cappadocia, Galatia, and these other provinces of Asia Minor, when you really have the economy and the military to be able to take on these tough kingdoms, as well as the empires that are behind them. So in any case, yeah, that's pretty much my guide for Pontus in EB2. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comments section below. And yeah, I'll see you guys next time, perhaps for the Parthia guide video. And yeah, I'll thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a like, subscribe, tell your friends, and I'll see you in the next one.